this oil spill crisis, and now in its 7th week, the White House still trying to get a handle on what could become a major political liability, if it hasn't already, for the president. So how is the administration doing, and what about BP? Joining us now via Skype is Jonathan Bernstein, president of Bernstein Crisis Management. He has 25 years of experience helping major companies deal with public relations disaster. Jonathan, thanks for joining us once again on the Skype there. We've heard from the president now 3 times from the Gulf Coast, well, once today from the White House. If the administration was initially criticized for a slow response, a lack of urgency, do you think the president has made up ground now, especially considering the failure of Top Kill?
No, I really don't. I think the president's got a long way to catch up here. He was clearly blindsided by the severity of the situation, and he's the kind of person who seems to operate too much based on a careful planning basis. And careful planning isn't always possible when you've got a breaking crisis. And I still think he's coming across as far too officious and not too action-oriented. So
what more does he need to do? Again, he's been up front, publicly speaking, 3 times in less than a week on this.
Right. I think he needs to be, first of all, I think he needs to be on scene. I know he has plans to be on scene, but he hasn't been there since May 2nd. And he needs to have the vice president or other senior members of his cabinet down there on a regular basis, showing their face on behalf of the president.
You know, the president came out swinging with this administration, passing the Economic Recovery Act, the health care reform. We're on the cusp of getting reg reform. Do you think that this oil spill, though, will literally overshadow any other, if you view those things as accomplishments, and be the defining event of the presidency?
I wouldn't. I'd say it has that potential. He's not there yet, but it's certainly being regarded, you know, as an almost bigger event than the wars in the Middle East right now. So it can be a seminal moment for him, and he has to accelerate his crisis management to a point where he's believable and not just sounding officious.
Now, some have suggested that the administration just take over full control, and perhaps even the suggestion has been put out there, replace BP with the military.
I don't think the military is set up for that, and neither is, if anybody used to be set up for it, it was FEMA, but FEMA, of course, was mostly gutted by the Bush administration. However, what BP needs to do, instead of being the Arthur Anderson of their industry and going down in flames in the court of public opinion, you know, I would issue a challenge to the board of directors of BP to say, we're going to devote whatever resources are necessary to making right with anybody who's damaged by this, even if it means liquidating half the stock of the company. Because if they don't do that voluntarily, it's just going to be taken from them.
All right, Jonathan. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Okay, we're hearing from Thad Allen of the Coast Guard there that BP is attempting seeding the TIGHTEST cap first. So this is basically now the next plan. Now that Top Kill failed, the next thing is to try and like slice the pipes and contain that oil to get it to, you know, the surface and have it just siphoned off by a boat, basically. I'm explaining it in very rudimentary terms. But again, we're getting a lot of information, Jonathan. We're getting a lot of pictures. So does this, I'm playing devil's advocate here, help at all in the administration's cause right now?
I think the only thing that's going to help is when the situation's solved and everybody has been made right. And I know the president's made great promises about making sure that everybody's taken care of, but the government is not very credible when it comes to making promises, either this administration or past ones.
All right, let's move on to another hotspot right now, that, of course, the Middle East. Deadly flotilla attack by Israel, saying it was protecting the Gaza Strip. So what's the U.S. role in all this? How should the president respond to this one?
Well, I mean, I'm sure the president is as surprised as most of us that Israel failed to anticipate being suckered like that. I mean, clearly someone was going to try to instigate something, and they walked right into it. So I would imagine right now there's a lot of nervous thumb twiddling in the White House and they're waiting to see what Israel's going to do, because Israel botched it badly, and now they're having to be in a defensive mode. And, of course, we're pledged to be their defensive partners. That puts us in a very awkward position.
All right, Jonathan. Jonathan Bernstein of Bernstein Crisis Management, talking about the administration and its role in this disaster.